ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Retro Warriors, episode 474. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human Chris Saturn.
Hello.
I kind of do like a... You know those guys on the side of the road that are the inflatable tube
The
men?
wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man?
You know, kind of their dance?
Yeah.
But imagine if it was like in slow motion. That's what I do when I intro the show, all the way until I start my week.
There's a pawn shop down the street from me that always has one of those out.
Yeah.
And it crushed itself somehow.
Oh.
Like it somehow the like man part of it fell underneath the fan. So like its bottom half was being shot up, but then it was like looped around and crushing itself.
Yeah.
And it was like that for like a month, and they finally fixed it, but they replaced it outright. It went from red to blue. So I don't know if like the old one got injured in its crushing or something.
He got retired.
Yeah, he got retired. He's been
He
replaced.
probably got mangled in there, ripped his face off or
Yeah,
something.
but that new one, it looks pretty fresh. It's clean.
It's I imagine they come in a multi-pack and you just rip the top off. It's perforated and you stick a new one on. Housekeeping this is the second show of the night,
Yeah.
so we're tired and weird.
We're
And
starting on tube, man.
and according to the show, pre-show, very old. We
Yeah,
all are
very
very old now.
Yeah.
We didn't used to be old.
Oh, we
but we're
were.
old now, and it'll happen to you.
You know, I remember hearing somebody like 10, 15 years ago talking about how there's that age where you stop sympathizing with Bart Simpson and start sympathizing with Homer Simpson.
Yes.
And I'm slowly getting to the age where I'm starting to sympathize with Grandpa Simpson.
Abe, yeah.
Yeah, it'll happen to you.
It's funny. One of my favorite shows is Malcolm in the Middle, and when I was a kid, it was great. I loved it, and as an adult, I watch it, but I identify with the parents.
Hey,
And I
you're more of a
realized that
Hal.
on my most recent watch through is I identify with Hal and Lois.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these kids are fucking monsters. Like
I think
it's-
that show came out when I was just the age where I already thought the kids were monsters, even though I was still, a teenager. But I wasn't yet old enough to empathize with the parents.
Yeah.
So it was not a good fit for me when it came out.
My week.
Yes, sir.
I bought a new telephone, Saturn.
Is it an RCA?
It is a cellular telephone.
Oh, is
which
it
means
Bakelite?
I don't need a cord at all.
That's bizarre.
I can go wherever I want. I bought a new phone.
Bought it directly from Ma Bell.
I'm pretty sure I swore off Samsung like a year or two
You
ago.
did, yes, I remember that.
And so I bought a Samsung.
Right, like you do.
My wife, she's never left the Samsung ecosystem. She loves Samsung. She loves all their stuff. She loves all. That's just what she uses.
Okay.
And they announced their new folding phones, and she had their Flip, which is the regular sized one that folds in half.
Yeah, the portrait mode flippy.
Yeah. And so she had that before, and she really liked it, but it like fucking murdered itself repeatedly. Like its own screen protector exploded off of it. Like it was a very fragile phone, and all of her stuff, unlike mine, looks brand new. Everything I own looks like it's like lived at a construction site since like I got it.
Yeah, I try to keep my electronics looking brand new as well.
I do too, but I use my phone a huge amount.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my phone anytime if I'm in Discord, 90% of the time it's me on my phone. I do a lot of walking and computer tasks on my phone all the time, especially now that I'm on this kind of new fitness regimen. I'm now up from 8,000 to like 14,000 steps a day, and it's mostly walking around on my phone. Right.
Yeah, I use my phone a lot, but I also keep it in a case with a screen protector at all times. So as soon as I remove those things, it looks like a brand new device again.
Oh, that doesn't always fucking work. Because what happens is in the gaps between your case and your screen protector, dirt and grime and sand and stuff works its way down in there.
But you can wipe those off every day or two, and then it's fine.
Yeah, but then you got to do it all the time. And
I
don't do it all the time. And I take it in the shower with me.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Yeah, no, it goes everywhere with me. I'm one of those people, one of those annoying people.
Weren't
anyway,
you trying to dephone yourself for a while there?
I go back and forth on it. when I find myself just scrolling aimlessly, I want to get away from that. Like if I'm actively chatting in Discord or actively doing something, I don't think that's problematic. But if I'm just like on my phone searching for dopamine, that's probably not. I should probably be doing something else. Anyway, she wanted to go look at the new Flippy phone because she wanted one. She was like, it's been a couple years. It's supposed to be more durable. I really loved it, even though it fell apart.
Yeah.
And we go, and while we're there, she looks at the phone that does the other fold, the other way, the book one, the one that is a screen, and then it folds open into a gigantic tablet-sized thing.
Yeah.
And she saw that, and she touched it and picked it up. And we're in Best Buy, and they have the Samsung phones are there on display before they come out.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, this is really nice." And then I picked it up, and I was like, "Oh my God, it is." And then I realized it had something that I've wanted on phones for so many years. It has a taskbar.
Oh, yeah.
Like a regular Windows, desktop OS style taskbar with an app launcher, and your windows go down in there so that you can do multi-window tasks on it like you would on a computer.
Yeah.
Which is a constant complaint I have with my phone, is that I'm trying to do shit on it, and just having two things going at once is a pain. Even if it does support multi-window, it's like you still have to all right, swipe up to your multi-app view and then hold down on the icon and then slide it. It's just weird.
Yeah.
And it works just enough like a desktop OS. Mm-hmm. It's kind of feels like a weird mix between Samsung DeX and then like their regular One UI.
Yeah.
That you can really kind of use it. And it has a big enough screen once unfolded that you can really sort of do computer tasks on it.
Nice.
And that was immediately exciting to me because, again, I do a lot of shit on my phone. I also do a lot of shit on my phone, like when I'm not home, and like I need to repost a show or something or whatever, and I'm out or I'm at the in-laws or whatever.
Right.
And so then I got excited. So we both bought these folding phones. And I ended up playing this week's game and last week's game, Dragon Quest IV, on it, which it emulates DS great because it is 2 screens tall.
Yeah.
It's awesome for DS and 3DS emulation.
Nice.
And the unfolded, it's a very square aspect ratio.
Yeah.
So it's actually really, really good for emulating on. And so I bought one of those little controllers, those little slidey controllers, one of those Nacons, that slides open, and I can put my unfolded phone in there, and it's real nice.
Nice.
It is real nice to play some games on. I also did go down kind of the rabbit hole of the mobile gaming landscape. And I downloaded a bunch of stuff just to see, like, what's going on in mobile gaming. And it's the same bullshit. I did try Diablo Immortal just because I like Diablo games and it was free. And I was like, I'll try it. That is one of the most insidiously, truly offensively designed monetization. To understand the monetization, I had to watch a 40-minute video of someone explaining it.
Didn't you say there were spreadsheets made for it?
There are spreadsheets for it. It's crazy. And it is like deepest, darkest, blackest pits of hell levels of monetization. And then the game is fucking fun as hell. It's Diablo. It's like real deal Diablo on your phone. It is heartbreaking to behold. It is truly like absolutely heartbreaking because the game itself, it's Diablo. It's great fun. You run around, you hit things, coins and swords explode out of goblins, and then you pick that up and then you kill the next goblin with it. It's fun.
Nice.
But it is just so heartbreakingly monetized. Like it upsets. I wouldn't be so upset if the game sucked.
Yeah.
Like if the game was kind of jank and it wasn't very fun or whatever, like, it's some mobile trash.
Right.
But when the moment to moment when you're playing it, you're like, oh, it's so good. But then a lot of the monetization is not exposed to you until you're many hours in or a certain number of purchases in. That's the depth. There's a YouTuber I watch, and his name is Josh Strife Hayes.
Okay.
And I watch him because he plays every garbage MMO out there and does legitimate like hour-long reviews on them.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. You know, I listen to it while I cook or whatever.
Right.
And he did the 40-minute video talking about like this is how Diablo Immortal is monetized. Because I was playing it and I was like, yeah, there's some monetization and it's kind of bad. And then as I played a little more, I was like, oh, there's kind of new monetization now that I can see and it's worse. Oh, there's even more and it's even worse. And that trend just continues. It is very offensively designed in the most hateful. I think it was designed by Diablo. I think is what happened. I think he was the monetization consultant. So I ended up switching back to Titan Quest, which is not necessarily as dopamine inducing because it's not built by a team of scientists to be so. But the Ultimate Edition of Titan Quest on Android works great. Playing it on my new big giant screen is great.
Yeah.
RetroArch on it is awesome.
Nice.
I've been having a really good time just doing like a lot of times when I'm on my phone, I have a task I need to do, and I'm like, oh, I got to go to the computer. I got to open this shitty website that doesn't scale to mobile formats and pay a bill. I need to post a show. I need to manipulate some files on a server or whatever. Or I need to have 2 or 3 windows going at once.
I feel that way the moment
shit.
I ever have to type anything. If typing is involved, I'm like, oh, I have to go to the computer. That's
typing is a lot easier too because the keyboard is big and giant and wide, so it makes typing a lot easier. But it definitely, I find myself feeling the need to go to my computer way less, which is really nice.
Nice.
Like the other day I was doing, what was I doing? I was trying to transfer my daughter's GameCube Animal Crossing save from her tablet running Dolphin to an actual GameCube memory card.
Okay.
By transferring it to a hacked Wii on the SD card and running a memory program.
Yeah.
And I kept having to run upstairs because I didn't have a full-sized SD card reader.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I kept having to run upstairs, plug it in my upstairs computer, manipulate files, come down. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, I need a different version of the program. And I was like, what am I doing?
Right.
And then I just got my SD card reader and plugged it into my phone, and I was doing all the file manipulation and everything there. It's just really, it's really nice. Like, I don't want to sell anybody on a phone because it's an insanely expensive phone.
Yeah.
But
how much is their Fold?
Because
I was looking at the Googles and it was $1,800.
I think it was the same. I think it was the same as that. I got the terabyte. Granted, I had a trade-in and it was pre-order window, so my like budget Pixel 3a that I paid $250 for traded in for like $600. And then there's a bunch of other discounts on top, but it's an expensive ass phone.
Yeah.
But I will say this as someone who has owned candy bar phones since, candy bar phones became a thing.
Yeah.
It is legitimately exciting to use a device that is actually functionally different. I miss when it used to be like, oh, you got a new phone and it's totally fucking different. Like, oh, it's got a slide out keyboard or an antenna or a fucking radio in it or something. Phones used to have it's neat to have that fun injected back into it.
I've got a friend who
really is different.
He got one of those phones that had the TV remote built into it.
Yes.
And he refuses to upgrade that ancient ass phone because he's like, but anytime in a hotel, I can just change the channel. I'm like, yeah, but you have an ancient phone.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of that kind of late aughts, early 2010s excitement of like phones having cool new features. Right. Go ahead.
I've heard that Android 15, which is the one coming out later this year, is going to have at the OS level, so any Android 15 phone should have it, a full desktop experience.
Oh, that's
so if you output to a monitor, you'll have a full, whatever they consider their full desktop experience. But it'll have the ability to run apps in Windows and have some sort of task-changing thing.
I want that full desktop experience on my phone, not on my external monitor.
Well, maybe you can with a fold phone. I don't know. Yeah. I'm curious.
Well, now, I will say Samsung's One UI, which is not my favorite launcher. I'm very impressed with the performance and the usability of their very desktop-like folding OS version. Because like you flip it open and it's like it's different. It is a different interface.
Yeah.
Which the weirdest thing to get used to was when I put an icon on my home screen, it goes on the home screen. If it's folded open, it goes on that home screen. But then when I shut it, my outer screen, it's not on that screen. They're different. They're actually different home screens.
That's weird.
Which was a little disorienting.
Yeah.
But then I realized, like, there's some things I'm not going to use with it folded shut, so I don't need them on the home screen.
That's fair.
The best so far has been gigantic Google Maps. Humongous, half-tablet-sized Google Maps in my car has been very useful.
Nice.
But I've been legitimately doing a large amount of gaming on it, and it's been the first phone that I've really felt that gaming was really useful and not too squished or small or weird aspect ratio, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been pretty fun.
Nice.
What have you been up to?
So I got a new controller, and you know we love controller talk.
We do.
So somebody in the chat was mentioning that they were using a Retro Fighters controller.
I've heard of these.
For PlayStation-y things. And for some reason, I was just looking at them, and I learned that the newest Bluetooth model of the Retro Fighters Defender works on PS3 natively.
Oh, that is weird.
Yes.
And PS3 controllers are super trash.
Right. And I was like, could I have a not trash controller that works natively on my PS3?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went ahead and grabbed one. And I figured if I don't like it, I can always send it back. And I powered it up, and they are correct. It natively works on the PS3. Like, I synced it the same way I would sync a PS3 controller by plugging it in, except for it's USB-C now instead of USB Mini. So I could use a regular ass USB cable instead of finding an ancient ass Mini sitting around somewhere. Plugged it in, hit the sync button, immediately worked. I can use turn on the system, turn off the system, everything. It's a really nice controller. It has an excellent D-pad. The face buttons will feel fine. I don't like the way they look, but once I'm using it, I'm not looking at the face buttons anyway.
Yeah.
The triggers feel so much better than an actual PS3 controller, which is one of my biggest complaints about the PS3 controller. I do have two qualms with it, which are ironically the same qualms I have with the PS3 controller, which is it's very light and the battery is not user replaceable. It is not as light as the PS3 controller, so I feel it is much more usable and functional. And the grip is much better than the PS3 controller, and the D-pad is much better than the PS3 controller. It has made me actually enjoy going back and playing some stuff on my PS3, which has been neat. I've been just tinkering around with a handful of my PS3 games on there, but mostly I'm just really pleased with the controller. And of course, it also works on other stuff too. Apparently, it works on PS4, though it doesn't have a touchpad, so it won't work on all games. But it is also 6-axis compatible, so you can use it on all PS3 games. And the face buttons are pressure sensitive, so you can use it on all PS2 games as well. So I've been very impressed with it.
I really loved my PS3 and played the shit out of it. This might convince me to pick one of these up and go back to it.
Yeah,
it's been a hot minute.
I don't know if you've looked at pictures of it or not, but it's...
I've got it pulled up right now. It looks very slick. I remember this is the company that was doing N64 controllers that were in kind of the modern format that everyone was all excited about.
Yes. Yeah, they've got N64 controllers. I think they have a GameCube controller as well.
And these are surprisingly affordable. $44 is pretty reasonable for a wireless controller that works on Switch, PC, and PlayStations 1 through 3.
Yeah. The one that I have works on PS3 and 4.
And they've got clear colorways. The blue and green are clear.
Yeah, the one that works on PS3 and 4 only comes in black and white, and the black one was out of stock, so I went ahead and grabbed a white one just to try it, and I'm pretty impressed with it.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's do the news.
Yes.
First up, a mod for the VMU allows playback of Genesis games in a super tiny form factor. If you want to do that, and it's a
cute.
VMU still, so
they did replace the screen with a color LED.
Right.
And of course, they replaced all the innards with something that could handle Genesis games. So it's only a VMU shell, really, but it's cute.
Did they keep the awful D-pad?
I think so. I think they kept the buttons.
No. SAG-AFTRA has called for a strike against video game companies,
which is fine.
Which is I'm not upset by this.
Yeah.
I think this is something that's been a long time coming.
I did read that any already contractually completed or any contracts that are already completed as far as voice acting can still go forward. So for any games that are already published and just getting patches or just getting DLC or something like that, as well as games that have already started the recording process are fine. It's just no new contracts until the strike is completed.
Yeah. A fan port of Rondo of Blood has been shown for Genesis, as well as a fan port of Castlevania Bloodlines for SNES.
And cats are sleeping with dogs, and the whole world's gone mad.
Up is down and left is right. It's cool to see.
Yeah,
It's
I
cool to
love
see
this
that.
kind of stuff.
10 years later, Amazon is still losing money on Twitch.
Weird.
It's almost like tech companies are so big and bloated and stupid that they don't really actually know how to make money
Right.
a lot of the time.
Well, they did spend almost $1 billion on Twitch, so that's clearly what it's worth, right? Despite the fact that it's made no money since then.
Yeah, it's almost like that was dumb.
I do give them credit. If they hadn't, I don't know that we'd still have a Twitch today.
True.
So
that's
at
true.
least Amazon is willing to continue to hemorrhage money over it.
Oh, I'm sure they're not happy about it. I'm sure they're very,
I'm
very
sure
unhappy
they're
about
okay
it.
with whatever advertising they're making off of it. I'm sure they're harvesting some data from it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. A prototype of an unfinished NES game called Glug has been preserved. The game was developed by former Rare developer Paul Proctor.
Yeah, he was
This is exciting.
developer on Wizards and Warriors, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Bungie lays off another 220 people, with 230 others being transferred to other Sony studios, including the creative director and VP of branding for Destiny.
And those are two different people, by the way, the creative director and the VP of branding.
Yes, pardon me.
So
that's not good. It's
Yeah.
sad to see such a legendary studio get acquired and then slowly get dismantled.
And it's frustrating
like this.
because the head of Bungie said that the whole reason he agreed to the Sony buyout was because it would prevent layoffs. And
Yeah.
since then, he has bragged about how many $500,000 cars he's bought and keeps laying people off.
Yeah, I don't know. I was upset about Sony buying Bungie. It seemed like it would not bode well for the future, even if it was done for protective means to try to protect their people, because clearly that's not happening.
Right.
It's just literally not occurring.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
You know.
Which
Jonathan Blow says the Braid Anniversary Edition sold, quote, like dog shit. I was taken aback by how many people in our Discord didn't know who Jonathan Blow was.
yeah, I was also surprised how many people didn't realize he was a horse's ass.
Oh, yeah. No, he's kind of a dick. He's
Yeah.
kind of a famous dick
Yeah.
in the indie game space. It was... He was one of those crops of... Like, indie games really kicked off around, like, 2010, 2012 era.
And he was just before that.
And so he was one of the, like, intellectuals in that space.
Yeah, him and Phil Fish.
You know, one of the people that had been there since the beginning, spouting truth and wisdom about the indie game landscape and
Yes.
being an artist and an auteur, and that's just kind of how he presented himself.
Yeah. Definitely
and-
a fart huffer.
Braid is a totally fine game,
Yeah, I enjoy Braid.
but in 2024, I'm sorry that it's not as groundbreaking
And
as it was
What
then.
what gets me is it is a game that was already available on Steam and Xbox
Yes.
for years now. For like 15 years, it's been on Steam and Xbox. You could buy it, you could play it. You can play it on the current Xbox, you can play it on a current PC. And then he releases the exact same game on those exact same platforms and wants $20 for it, and is shocked when people aren't, you know, freaking out over it.
$20 for Braid is insane, because that was a game I was given in bundles
Yeah.
dozens of times.
Right.
Like, Braid is up there with, like, Cannibalt as far as, like, games that were featured in Humble bundles.
Right.
Like, it is, everyone has Braid.
And
If you lived in the suburbs, you were issued it.
And it was barely advertised that this anniversary came out. And what's
Yeah.
more, they called it Anniversary Edition, and it released like 15 years and 9 months after the original. Like close to the 16th anniversary, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they were thinking, but yeah, I'm not surprised at all that it sold like dog shit.
Hyper Megatech is the name of a company, and they have announced new variants of their Evercade-compatible Super Pocket console. The new models feature branding and games from Atari and Technos. Technos has been featured on, and Atari, on a bunch of Evercade cartridges previously.
Yep.
So neat.
Yep.
I don't know that either of us is really the market for this.
No,
but it's cool.
Not that big of a handheld person, but it's cute looking.
I like anything that's legal emulation of decent quality.
Right.
I like that. I like to see that. I think we need more of that.
And it's compatible with Evercade carts, so you can play your other games on there too.
There you go. A decompilation project is underway for the PS1 Spider-Man game that a lot of people really love. I never played it, but people really, really are into the PS1 Spider-Man game.
That's the one that was done by the Tony Hawk guys, right?
Was it? Maybe, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was Neversoft.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't doubt you. How about that?
Yeah, it was Neversoft. Sorry. Yes, I just double checked.
ROMhacking.net has posted that it is shutting down.
It's tragic news. I am devastated by this.
The site will remain in a read-only format. This is absolutely devastating to me personally.
This news only came out as we were starting to record the show tonight. So we are both
devastating
hit by
to the
this.
community at large.
Yeah.
The owner of the site posted saying that he had talked about transferring it to someone else, but now there's talk of people being mean and them getting doxxed, and there's a lot of accusations flying around. There is also already backlash to this from multiple people saying, hey, this person was not doxxed, nor was their life threatened. They're throwing a big giant fit over what amounts to ultimately nothing.
It's
like
internet
at the
drama,
time
and it's very early, so we don't know anything yet.
Yeah. At the time of recording, we don't know anything except that ROMhacking.net has said that they are switching to read only,
which is so tragic.
And yeah, this is absolutely a devastating blow to the
very
community. I go there all the
site
time
for
extremely important
ROM hacks and for fan translations. And I don't know that there is a better resource out there for ROM hacks or fan translations. So this is going to be really devastating to that community.
Yeah, I would say download all the patches you can while you can.
Yeah. Granted, he did upload everything to archive.org. So
right. So it exists at least as long as archive.org exists, which is also another question because they've been also
getting hit with shit.
Having problems. It seems every day that the old internet is crumbling out from beneath us. And
preservation
I think,
is desperately clinging to life.
Obviously, again, the drama here is so fresh, like it literally happened a couple hours ago. We don't know what all is going to shake out or who all said what or what all happened behind the scenes. And I'm not even fully familiar with all the big ROM hacking community members that are involved in the drama. I don't know who any of these people are.
No.
But I think we need to remember that these places are maintained and run by human beings.
Right.
A lot of these are passion projects.
Yep.
They're things that cost people money to maintain every month, to keep up, to keep running.
Yep.
Anyone that is maintaining this kind of thing online, whatever drama happened behind the scene, I have no fucking idea. But kudos to them for keeping things going as long as they did. Every little goofy, weird website that you go to for whatever reason, like someone is on the back end maintaining that. So I think it's just worth remembering and worth trying to support those people when and how we can.
Definitely.
But basically what I'm saying is give Wikipedia the fucking dollar.
I
know they asked you about it. I know you went to the website and they're like, please don't minimize this. And the first thing you did was close the thing.
I was reading the other day, apparently Wikipedia has received so many donations the last few years that they don't have a way to spend the money at present.
Oh, thank God. I'm perpetually worried about Wikipedia.
Yeah, they are apparently overfunded at the moment and trying to find legal ways that they can spend that money. Because,
they can give it to me.
They can't actually for legal reasons. They can't do that.
They can hire me for $1 million a minute to
actually, they can't do that either. There's very specific rules about how they can or can't hire people with.
I'll sell them something.
Yeah, it's tricky. So they are trying to find ways to spend the money. So we'll
good.
That's good news. I'll take that.
Anyway, my point is these websites are run by people.
Yes.
The internet is currently run by people, although AI is trying to take that job Yeah, and porn, but porn's also run by people.
For now.
First,
Soon it'll just be robots making robot porn for other robots.
yep, it'll just be AI computers posting their own pornography, and then other AI bots commenting on the pornography. The final news bit, 2 news bits. Sorry, there's 2 more. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team is coming to Nintendo Switch Online Plus Plus on August 9th. This is a GBA game. It's pretty good.
Breathe.
Have fun.
Breathe. This is why your watch says your heart rate is so high.
Is that what it is? Is 172 high? A prototype for an unannounced English localization of Taloon's Mystery Dungeon for SNES turned up on eBay and was sold to a private collector, boo, for 50 million Europe dollars.
50,000.
50,000. I don't know why I said million.
I don't either. I also don't know why you said Taloon is Taloon.
50,000 Europe dollars.
Yes. Sorry, Europe. The euro has been
$50 million. That's cool. I hope it gets dumped. I hope that the private collector.
It looks like
anytime they write private collector in my head, I assume that they're not going to dump
that's
it.
That's what it seems to be. The person seems to have no interest in preservation, which is frustrating because we didn't even know that this really existed until recently. There was rumor that there was a possible translation in the works for a while there, but there was nothing pointing to it actually existing. And now we finally see an actual prototype in the wild, and it's immediately snatched up by a private collector who seems to have no interest in preserving it, and that's really frustrating.
Which brings us to our topic at hand.
It actually does. I put that at the bottom of the notes because it does bring us to our topic at hand.
Which is Dragon Quest IV?
Yeah, it's when you shove Dragon Quest into your veins.
Oh, I did that. I did that for many hours this week. Synopsis: Saturn wrote For Dragon 4 Quest. Which is my favorite Fast and Furious movie. Yeah. For people that don't know how parts work, this is the second part of our Dragon Quest IV coverage. We will assume you heard the first part. If you listen to them backwards, then weird. Last episode was presentation, development, game mechanics, how the game plays. This episode is all story, all the time, all the way to the very end.
And then a little bit of reception and legacy at the end.
A little bit of reception legacy. So if you don't want story spoilers, then too bad, because you're already listening and you can't pause the show, because then it ruins our engagement, and then we go down in the podcast channels. I don't know how podcasts work.
I
just do them.
Podcast hell.
I have no idea how any of this shit works.
Podcast devil shows up. And he makes us cover
I just mail an
Activision
SD
games.
card to Liberated Syndication once a week, and they post it for me. Let's talk story for Dragon Quest IV.
Yes. Start with the
I'm
prologue.
gonna let you take it away with the prologue.
Yeah. So the prologue is an exclusive intro chapter. It's only on the PS1, DS, and mobile versions of the game. It is. Your playable character is our hero, whose name is either Solo or Sophia officially, but really you name them, so they don't have an official name. It's whatever you named your character.
I named him Retro.
I'm going to call him Solo for the rest of this episode.
Okay, well, all right, fine.
But yeah, you can choose a female character in this one. The canon names are Solo or Sophia, though that's not really canon. That's just what I think it was some spin-off media or manga or something that called them that, and so people have just stuck with it, but officially they don't have a name.
Solo is a stupid name.
Yes. So
mostly because he's not Solo.
No. Well, he's Solo for like a minute.
Wagon full of people.
For like a minute before you recruit anybody.
It's dumb.
Yeah. So the prologue is basically just a slice of life chapter that shows how peaceful life is for the hero, and also shows that their friend can change form. Using magic.
I did not know this was exclusive. The story would have felt definitely less. It would have felt weirder without this for me.
Oh yeah, this was not in the original game.
Because the return, because you're in this prologue for just a couple minutes, and then the return back to this later on when the town's getting destroyed, it makes it all that much more devastating.
I remember being so confused as to why it even asked me to name my character if it was immediately going to call me Ragnar. That was my take on Dragon Quest IV back in '92. It was like, why did I enter my name if you're just going to call me Ragnar? And then we got to chapter 2, and it was like, now Ragnar's gone. Why did it tell me to enter my name earlier? And it isn't until chapter 5 that you ever meet that character. You're like, oh, that was weird. So in the new versions, there is the prologue to at least meet your character briefly, even if you don't really play as them until chapter 5.
No. Although I do feel like the hero character is always depicted in like armor.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole bit is you're like in this peaceful town, oblivious to the problems of the world, and but like constantly decked out in armor, even when you're sitting there eating dinner with your family.
Well, the official character art for him has him in a tunic.
True. I guess the DS art just looks very armor laden.
I always saw him as being in his tunic. I mean, he still has his sword and shield with him.
Right, but he's got like this head thing on. He's got some kind of shoulder, like pauldrons or something going on.
See, I've never seen that.
And then at the end, in the DS version, in the very last scene, which I'm not going to totally spoil yet because we'll get to it later, in the very last scene, his very last moments in the game, he shrugs off some kind of like, I don't know what it is, some kind of like metal bracer or something on his back or shoulders onto the ground.
I just assumed it was like his shield and weird head thing.
It just didn't look like a shield, but then he still had his head thing on. It just looked kind of weird.
Whereas if you play as the female hero, she wears a leotard, because of course she does.
Yeah, well,
she has a single leg wrap for some reason.
Yeah, well, she's got one cold leg.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you're sleeping and you got to stick one leg out to get cool, but you don't want both legs out because you're going to be cold.
Yeah, that's her entire life.
But it's buttoned to her leotard because she can't just have a pant leg.
Sure, Toriyama, that's how life works. Whatever. She bought a single pant.
I was thinking about the female character art the other day because I was at the mall and there was a woman wearing shorts, but one leg was short and one leg was pant.
Why?
They were, I don't know.
I remember one of the Uno Jack games had one of the prizes as a single pant, a single men's pant.
It was obviously designed that way. They were like shorts, but then one leg was a pant.
That's so weird.
And so I was like, oh, she must like Dragon Quest IV. Must be her favorite. Anyway, tell us about Ragnar McRyan.
All right. So it's second chapter. You have Ragnar. The official title of the chapter is Ragnar McRyan and the Case of the Missing Children.
Yeah.
Though on NES, it's just called The Royal Soldiers, which is a much simpler title. So you have Ragnar McRyan, who in Japan is just called Ryan. But for some reason on the Western localization on NES, they called him Ragnar, which was also one of the default soldier names on Dragon Quest III. So I guess the guys at NX America just really liked the name Ragnar. The DS remake tries to split the difference and calls him Ragnar McRyan to give him both his Western and Japanese name. So he is a soldier of the Kingdom of Berland. So the story is that Ragnar is tasked by the king to investigate missing children in the nearby village of Strathbale, which was just Izmit on NES. And in the investigation, he meets a woman who is trying to wait for her husband to come home. He goes to Strathbale and learns that the husband is there, and he has regressed to the mind of a child and been locked up. And he brings the woman to her husband, and the guy comes to his senses and says, oh, the children are talking about a secret playground in the woods, and maybe that's where the missing children are. So Ragnar goes to investigate, and he finds the flying shoes and also a friendly heel slime. And then
Healy, who I think is technically optional. I think you can tell Healy to fuck off, can't you?
You can skip Healy, yes.
Yeah, I don't know why you would, because Healy's fantastic.
Yes.
And also one of the companions that doesn't show up again later in the game, which is devastating to me.
He shows up.
Does he?
Yeah, he's in...
I didn't get him in my party.
No, you don't get him in your party, but he does show up.
I want him in my fucking party, Saturn.
No, he shows up later. I'll mention it when he shows up.
I don't want him to just exist. I want him in my wagon.
He's succeeded in his goal by chapter 5.
All right.
Because his whole goal is he wants to become a human.
Oh,
and in chapter 5, he's a human. I
must have missed that story beat.
Yeah, he's standing outside the castle where you meet up with Ragnar again. But he just looks like generic bard character, And when
Oh,
you
I guess
talk
it didn't talk to
when
him.
you talk to him, he's like, "Hi, my name is Healy, and I used to be a heel slime. My friend Ragnar's inside. You should go in there." And that's about it.
No, I missed that. I must
yeah.
not have talked to that guy.
Yeah, he's just standing there. Anyway,
Well, I'm upset. I want him to be a slime again.
no,
This is all
that's not gonna
bullshit.
happen. Anyway,
Unacceptable.
so you meet Healy and you get the flying shoes. And the flying shoes, when you use them, cause you to fly up into the air and land on a tower that's in a nearby lake. And that's
Right.
where all...
That's the only place you can fly
yeah, that's
to
it.
with
That's the one place.
There's one directional, specific location flying shoes.
I think they call them Talaria in the DS version. But in,
maybe. Yeah, that sounds
on
familiar.
the NES, it was just the flying shoes. And then, so you get to the tower. That's where all the kidnapped children are. They were kidnapped by a pawn of Sorrow, who we learn will be the bad guy. And Sorrow is kidnapping these local children, or at least ordered his men to kidnap these local children, because he thinks one of them could grow up to be the legendary hero, and so he doesn't want any of these kids to be able to grow up, so he kidnaps them, presumably to kill them, because the game starts really fucking dark.
So timeline-wise, how is it? Because
So this
I
is
guess
supposed to be around the same time as the prologue. So the hero
Okay.
is a kid living in his kid town, and these other kids are getting kidnapped because Sorrow knows that there is a kid out there somewhere who's supposed to grow up to be the hero, and he wants him stopped.
but the hero's like a teenager.
Right.
So Sorrow's got the time a little fucked up
Correct.
because he's kidnapping like little kids.
Yeah. Either that or this is supposed to take place before the prologue and the game just fucked that up.
That was my thinking is maybe the timeline-wise, but then I
yeah.
don't know.
Oh.
So
So
the section was okay.
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked having Healy.
Yeah.
I was a little confused on the whole guy that regressed to the mind of a child and like why and how that all
Right.
happened. Because they don't really ever. Maybe they do, but I was like, why? But is he like enchanted? Is it a
I think
spell? And they're like,
they imply like he got hit by something, or also he was cursed by one of the monsters.
but then seeing his wife, and he's
Just-
like, oh hey, yeah, I'm married
Yeah.
to an adult woman.
I'm an adult human male.
So that was kind of weird. This whole chapter is kind of just running back and forth between a
Right.
couple locations, and then yeah,
It's very much an
hear about Sorrow
introductory
for the first
chapter.
time.
It's very much meant to teach new players, like, this is how you Dragon Quest. They don't even give you any magic. It's just
yeah.
you're a soldier character, go do soldiery things, learn how to talk to people, and go to places.
All right, let's talk about Elena now because this is where it gets good.
Yeah, this is a big chapter too. So you got chapter 2 is Elena and the journey Elena and the journey to the tourney. So your characters, you have Tsarevna Elena, who's the daughter of the Tsar. She's a tomboyish princess who is looking to prove her strength to the world. You've got Kirill, who is named Christo on NES, and he is Elena's retainer and a priest who serves the kingdom that Elena lives in. And you've got Borya, who was named Bray on NES, who is the court mage and tutor of Elena's. And so Elena is the princess or Tsarevna of the kingdom, and she's trying to get to the nearby.
Is her whole kingdom? Are they trying to do like a Russian thing?
Yes, yeah. In
Okay,
the DS
that's what it
version, it is
seemed-
Russian themed.
Yeah. Some of the accents they don't really ham up the phonetic accent. They just occasionally rearrange some words in a strange way.
Yes,
And this was one of those sections where I was like, every now and then sentences would be structured strangely,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, "Oh, are they trying to do like a kind of Russian?"
I think they're
sounding
trying to
thing?
do a
Is that what this is?
Yakov Smirnov the whole time. That's what I
Okay.
got from it.
Yeah, I could see that.
The whole thing is like, in Soviet Russia, I am tomboy princess.
Yeah, that's
what
kinda
I
it
got
felt
from
like. Yeah, that's probably accurate.
So, Elena is trying to get to the nearby kingdom of Endor to participate in a combat tournament to prove her strength or whatever. Her father, the Tsar, is against that, and he does not want her to participate because she's the princess and she's supposed to do princessy things. And
Yep.
So he locks her in her room, and she promptly breaks the wall down with her foot.
So I want to talk about this for a minute.
Uh-huh.
She has broken out of her room, and you don't know how she broke out of her room, but then you go to her room, and one of the walls is like fucking boarded up, where she obviously Looney Tunes punched through it. And immediately they're like, that'll do it. And you walk straight over to the wall and punch the entire
kick
fucking
it.
wall off of the castle. Yeah.
You kick it down,
It's just completely explodes the whole side of the building off.
And then she just jumps down onto the roof of the first floor and walks out of the castle.
I loved
who
it.
Elena is.
Elena's great.
And if you play any of the spin-offs, like the Dragon Quest Heroes games, she is still absolutely that. She's just like, what if we kick things to death? It's great. I love Elena in all the games. And so as she's leaving the castle, she is stopped by Kirill and Boria, who are like, look, we knew you were going to break out. And
right, we're going to go with you.
We're just going to go with you. We know you're going to, go and do whatever the fuck you want to do. So we at least want to keep you safe. So they come along and you stop by at a local town that is sacrificing maidens to a monster.
And normal stuff.
And Elena's like, what if I'm the maiden? Then I can stop the monster with my fist. And then you get to another town where you find that Princess Elena has been kidnapped, but that can't be true because you're Princess Elena. And you discover that it's actually an imposter who was just trying to make some money off of Elena's name. So but they have actually been kidnapped, so you have to go and save them. And then after you do all this, you're on your way to Endor, and you learn that something has happened. The king has lost his voice. He's no longer able to talk, and he is looking for his daughter. And so you go back to Endor. You learn about the bird song nectar, which can cure him. So you go and you find it, and you bring it back to him. You save him, and he's like, "Okay, well, apparently you've proven that you can survive out there. So go out there and go join your tournament."
Yeah.
So you make it to Endor, and you learn that the prize for the tournament is the Princess of Endor's hand in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And the current winner of the tournament is Sorrow, who we already learned in the last chapter was the bad guy.
Yes, Sorrow the Manslayer, as
Sorrow
he's
the
called in this
Manslayer.
chapter. Yeah.
And the princess, not Elena, the Princess of Endor, is very concerned about this. She does not want to be married to Sorrow, so she is begging Elena to please win the contest, because if a woman wins the contest, a woman can't marry a woman. That would be insane. So clearly you would just have to call off the whole thing.
There's a little bit of
this was a early 90s game.
Yeah, it's a little bit homophobic.
A little.
I think only because they're like, they're not like, oh, well, we don't want to get married. They're like, what a ridiculous notion.
Right.
That couldn't ever occur in real life.
If they had played it as just like, then we can call it off because neither of us would want to marry each other. That'd be fine with me. But instead they're like,
but
then they would call it off because how could that happen?
Two women, who would be the man?
Yeah.
It's very like, come on.
Yeah.
I'll say it doesn't. That part was a little like, that's not awesome.
The modern localization of it is a little wackier about it, just because the whole game plays a little wackier. The early localization was much more straightforward. Of if you win the tournament, then I will not have to get married because you are a woman. and
which is almost somehow a little, I think, this is
almost
one of those
less
instances
offensive.
where, it being more wacky makes it seem a little more offensive, because it's very much like, oh, what craziness would that be?
Right.
Like, that makes it seem worse than just like, you're a woman, I'm not going to marry a woman. Like, that's So I think I don't think there was any intent. I think it's just kind of lost in translation a little bit.
Yeah, and also lost time a little bit.
So you eventually go through and you win the tournament, but Sorrow doesn't show.
Yeah. He refuses to show, so you were crowned winner by default. But
which the tournament is it's tough.
Yeah,
that is a tough series. It's basically just a boss rush.
Yeah, and it is probably the hardest segment in the game too.
I cheated.
As a kid, I would always super grind for that, and then completely fill my inventory with as many healing items as I could, and just hope for the best. Because especially when you get to that one boss that in the tournament that splits into 4, and you have to hit the one. Man, that was
it's
was
just
rough.
RNG City.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, that was a rough. segment.
I was cheating on that one. It still took an extremely long time.
So you win the tournament, and then Elena learns that her father is missing. So you go back to Zamoskva, which is the Russian kingdom name. In the NES, it was just called Santim, which is a very different name. But you go back to the castle and learn that not only is her father missing, the entire castle is empty.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
And then they let you walk around this empty castle for a while.
With no music. They cut the music for it.
Do we ever really know what happened?
We basically, it is implied in chapter 5 that Sorrow sent his soldiers to take out that entire kingdom because they learned that Elena is powerful and they don't want any powerful people.
That's what I had surmised, but then there's never any body. Elena's kind of the one that doesn't really ever get any closure.
Right. Yeah, no.
Everyone else kind of gets some closure and a bit of a happy ending. Elena's like, your whole kingdom was slaughtered.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
That's
so
it.
It's a little dark on that end. Tell us about Tornico.
Oh, the best chapter. This is chapter 3, Tornico and the Extravagant Excavation. Your playable character is Tornico Taloon, who was originally just called Taloon on NES, but they wanted to unify his name with his Japanese name like all the others, so now he is Tornico Taloon. He is an arms merchant from the town of Lakanaba. You can briefly also hire a couple of other playable characters who on the DS are called Laurel and Hardy.
I hired them Hardy first and then Laurel and did not realize their names were Laurel and Hardy. Until like the third time I hired them and I did them in the opposite order and I was like, Laurel and Hardy. I get it.
Yeah, and on the NES they were just Strom and Laurent, which was much more straightforward names.
I liked the idea of hiring mercenaries to travel with you. I thought that was a cool mechanic and something that was kind of unique, especially for this era.
Right.
And they don't really show up again later. They're just like, they're literally just mercs you hire for a little bit and then that's it.
Yeah. You got the one really soldier merc and the one healer merc and that's it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Tornico's story, he lives with his wife and his child in Lakanaba, and he works as an arms merchant. And every morning he wakes up, he gets his lunch from his wife, he goes to the store. At the end of the day, his boss gives him his pay and he goes home to his family, and that's his entire life. But he dreams of a future where he can own his own store.
Yeah.
But you get to play as his regular life for as long as you want to.
Oh yeah. I assumed there was some catalyzing event that occurs at some point.
No, you just get to leave.
So I was getting up every day and I would talk to my boy and I would get a lunch from my wife and I would go and I would run the shop. And the shop's actually really cool. So people just show up and really all you have to do is mash A.
Yes. But you can choose not to.
Yeah, you can, but there's no reason not to. But you can.
You can change prices and stuff.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
I just always said yes to everything.
If they're like, and this is 75 gold, right? And you say no, sometimes they'll be like, okay, thanks, bye. But other times they'll be like, oh, you strike a hard bargain. Well, what about 110 gold?
So you just stand there and people come in, they sell you stuff and you sell them items, and basically they'll sell you an item, you can flip it for money, and then you get a payout at the end of the day based on the sales that you made.
Right.
And I did it for a real long time waiting. And I will say what's interesting is from a story perspective, this is a great example of story really marrying with gameplay. What I loved about it was it's tedious from the get-go.
Sure, yeah.
It's just his section is kind of tedious at the beginning, but it's supposed to be tedious.
Right.
Because Tornico wants out of this tedious life. He has dreams, bigger dreams of having his own shop, of finding this magic steel strongbox that he could keep everyone's money in to then open his own store that he's heard about. And so it really is an awesome moment of like, and there's also, even in the guide I was reading, it was like, yeah, you should save up a little bit of money. So I'm legitimately having to work this job to save up some money in this tedious way, day in, day out, eating the same packed lunch, hearing the same dialogue from my kid, doing the same shit for many, many days in a row. And it's a wonderful moment of one, just inventive kind of a deconstruction
of the whole shopkeeper mechanic in games, because you hear the customer's dialogue and not your own dialogue, which is the reverse of what you normally get from shops in these games.
So a wonderful deconstruction, a wonderful marrying of gameplay and story, and then when you finally do set out, it makes it all that much sweeter that you've saved up this money working this menial ass fucking job to go out and you go through this dungeon to find this steel box and then open your own shop ultimately. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah,
so.
but you can also if you stick around long enough at the shop at the beginning of his chapter, people will sell weapons that are not normally on the menu, and you can end up getting an extremely powerful weapon that way. There's a chance they'll sell the Cautery sword to you, which is the most powerful weapon in that chapter. And then as long as you refuse to sell it to anyone, you can save up enough money to just buy it yourself. And then you just have it for the rest of that chapter into chapter 5. And it makes the whole rest of the chapter much easier if you do that.
Yeah.
So he dreams about having his own shop. He dreams about moving along. So he does eventually just leave. And by that, I mean, you stop going to work. And then you can go get the steel strongbox at the local cave. It's neat because it's also a gameplay mechanic, because if you die while you have the steel strongbox in your inventory, you don't lose your money from death, which is also a neat little integration of story and gameplay. And then you are on your way to Endor to buy the shop, but the bridge is broken because the local kingdom of Ballymore and Endor are having a war, and they broke the bridge, and there's supposed to be a guy fixing it, but he's vanished. And you learn that he is stuck in a town nearby that is run by foxes masquerading as humans, who have somehow tricked him into falling in love with one of the foxes.
Yes.
So you have to go borrow a dog to take to the town to chase off all the foxes, so that the guy will realize that he's in a town full of foxes and
then later you get a bear to scare off the dog, and you get a hunter to kill the bear, and then you pass gun laws to get rid of the hunter.
Right.
And that's the rest of it.
Ultimately, it comes into government regulation. It's a very heavy-handed chapter. No, it's just the dog. It's just the dog.
Yeah, you borrow a guy's dog.
Yeah, and then the bridge gets fixed, and before you go to Endor, you learn that the king of Ballymore is trying to declare war on Endor, but the prince of Ballymore doesn't want to declare war on Endor because he's in love with the princess of Endor that was supposed to be the reward for the tournament in the last chapter. And he convinces Tornico to deliver a letter to the king and princess of Endor so that they won't, have this war. And when you do so, the king of Endor was like, oh, well, of course I'll grant you the right to open a shop in this town. You just saved us from this war and told me about, my daughter's love. And then you go back to Ballymore, and the king there, instead of being happy that his kid is getting married, is like, ha ha ha, now my son will become the king of Endor, and then I will control everything. So he's just a cartoon villain character.
It's just Dick Dastardly level
that you never address
evil.
Again for the rest of the game. You're just like, I guess you get it. Congrats. But yeah, you do get to start your store, but it's very expensive. It costs a shitload of money to make a store, so you have to do all kinds of stuff. You can sell weaponry to the king of Ballymore, which will get you some extra money. Or you can find this, I think it's called a silver statuette in a local cave that you can sell for a shitload of money.
One of the kingdoms is short of armor, and they buy armor at double price.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can do all these different things to make money, but ultimately your goal is to save up enough money to buy the shop. And when you buy the shop, your wife and son move from Lakanaba into Endor, and they run the shop for you. You don't run the shop anymore. Your wife does all the work now.
Right.
Basically, your dream was putting your wife to work. Way to go, Tornico.
You did it! And then leaving them later so that they don't have merchandise, so she's forced to open a bank because that's the only way they can get by.
Right. So
you deadbeat.
Yeah. So, and at first during your chapter, you just keep bringing her merchandise to sell. That's your entire business strategy. Good job. And then to end the chapter, you're saving up enough money to fund this other guy's dream of creating a tunnel, an underground tunnel that connects Endor to another nearby kingdom. And so you have to save up enough money, you pay off that, and then
60,000
gold to pay off the tunnel. And then as soon as the tunnel's done, you're just like, all right, I'm off. I'm just going to go adventure somewhere. Goodbye, wife and kid. Enjoy that shop I just bought.
Which the statue that you find is you sell to a collector
Yeah.
for, I believe, the exact amount that the tunnel costs.
I think it's just more than what the tunnel costs, if I remember right.
Yeah. Either way, that's the thing you really want to do. Like, you can do it the other way, but go get the statue.
Yeah, you can really just grind enemies the whole chapter if you really wanted to. It's stupid and you shouldn't, but that could get you your money for all the things and then just end the chapter.
Yeah. Which brings us to chapter 4, the next to last chapter, which means the game's almost over, right?
Well, this is the last chapter before the last chapter. You've got chapter 4, Mina and Maya and the Mahabala mystery, which they were really stretching for that alliteration there. These characters were called Mara and Nara on NES, and in my mind, that's still their names.
Yeah,
But
Maya and Mina on DS.
Maya and Mina, which are very difficult to remember which one is which. Maya is the dancer and the offensive mage. Mina is the fortune teller and the healing mage.
Yes, Mina is the one I had in my party most of the time. Anyway, their dad was killed by a ball sack.
Yeah, their dad was killed by a ball sacks. And this is a difficult chapter just because you only have 2 mages and they're both very squishy.
Yeah. You do get Ujam eventually, but he's not super awesome.
Yeah, and also he talks like he is special. He's like mentally challenged or something on DS, doesn't he? Or was that on NES that he talked like that?
I don't remember him talking weird, but everyone in the game talks so
Fair.
weird that I very well could have just missed it.
Yeah,
you know.
Between the two, one of them he talks like he's special needs, which is really concerning because you're just forcing him to kill monsters for you the whole time.
Yeah, and break into places and whatever else.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
Maya and Mina, their dad was killed by, his name is Balzac.
yeah.
Balzac.
I don't remember what I was reading. Somebody was talking about how they their father or somebody used the name Balzac as a pejorative, like, oh, Balzac. And yeah, anyway. All right. Anyway, so you got Maya and Mina who are trying to avenge their father. So they have gone to the town of Laissez-Faire, which is basically just a town of debauchery. And Maya is working as a dancer to make money. Mina is working as a fortune teller to make money. But really, they're just trying to find info about Balzac. And that leads them back to their hometown, where they learn that their father's disciple, Ujam, was still alive and living in a cave for some reason.
Yeah, not back in town.
Well, so you go to the cave, you find Ujam, you find out that he can break locks. And he's able to help you break into the Palace de Lyon, which is where Balzac is, along with the Marquis de Lyon. But you can't get to them. You don't know where they are. They're somewhere in the palace, but they're hidden.
This is the stupidest plot of the whole game.
So
because you you have to. So the whole thing is the Chancellor scares easy.
Yeah.
And if you only had a barrel of gunpowder to make a loud noise, but the only place to get gunpowder
It's in the mine.
is the nearby town. What was it? It's the sad town, like Miami or Miasma or something like that, right?
Oh shit! Now I'm trying to remember Mine Town DQ4. It's Mammon.
the one full
is
of
what
poison.
it's called in the
Mammon,
remake.
the one full of poison.
It was a
And you go
Timto in the
there-
original, which is has nothing to do with it.
And you go and you get this stuff, and then you stand outside the Chancellor's hallway.
And you
and
light your
explode
gunpowder.
a whole barrel of gunpowder, and he shrieks and runs down the hall through a secret door, and that's how you know where to go.
Yeah, that's how
to
you
find Balzac.
and the Marquis.
You couldn't have just like banged on the wall or something. I mean,
No, that's too easy. He'd know what that is. He doesn't know what gunpowder is.
so yeah, you go in there, and Balzac is there.
Yeah, and you use the Sphere's silence. You defeat Balzac, but then immediately after you defeat Balzac, the Marquis is like, "Oh well, fucking, you get to fight me now," and he just wrecks you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up in jail, and you find the actual Marquis in jail that was replaced with a lion monster. And the actual Marquis is like, "Here, take this boarding pass. Use my secret tunnel that I was going to use to escape, but instead I'll just die here. I'll be fine. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, you can use a
Nope.
tunnel more than once.
Nope, sorry,
dude.
you're the only one. I'm going to die here. It's fine.
God damn it.
And so you take the boarding pass, you leave, you get on a boat, and you sail to Endor. And it's really just kind of a bittersweet, sad ending to that chapter. Because, like, your father's still dead. The king is dead. The Balzac was stopped, I guess, but not the real bad guy. And Ujam stays behind while you sail off to Endor.
So let's jump into chapter 5 as we are at time for the show.
The big chapter.
And I don't quite know how to speed through this because a lot of it is just sort of running back and forth.
There's a lot of just simple tasks. But the brunt of it,
things.
if we want to simplify it, is we come back to our hero. His hometown, which was peaceful in the prologue, is being attacked by the monsters because they have found where the hero is. And your friend that could change shape decides to change into your shape and tell you to hide and goes and sacrifices herself.
Right. Tragically dies as you hide in like a fucking panic room.
So that Sorrow's men will think that the hero was killed. But you survive, and then alone and confused and unaware that you were supposed to be some hero, you have to strike it out in the world, and you end up meeting up with the characters and trying to stop Sorrow. That's the short version.
Yeah, I do love that the first person you run into when you leave your town where everyone just got killed is a pissed off dwarf that thinks you're a fucking idiot and hates people.
Yes.
Like, you walk right out of town, there's a dwarf in a hut, like, right outside, and he's like, "Get the hell out of here, you're stupid, you suck, I hate you."
Right?
It's very weird.
That's your hello world moment in Dragon Quest IV is a log cutter that hates you.
But yeah, you slowly eventually begin meeting up with people.
Yep.
You eventually get to go through the tunnel.
Yep.
And that's where you run into Mina and Maya.
Yep, because they just arrived.
And they're the
Endor.
ones that kind of tell you that you're the chosen one.
Yeah, because you go to Mina and she's a fortune teller, and she's like, I see that you are going to meet up with 7 people who will help you say, "Oh shit, you're the guy we're supposed to meet up with."
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's a weird kind of brief side story with the guy that gives you the wagon, Hank.
Yeah.
Hank Hoffman.
Yep.
And when do you run into Tornico? Tornico had bought a ship.
Yeah, you meet up with Tornico right after you've recruited Hank and his wagon, because you're trying to get across the ocean, and none of the ships are sailing because the lighthouse is fucked up. And that's when you go and you find Tornico has tried to single-handedly save the lighthouse, but it was too much for him. So he's like, "Well, you guys go up there, and in exchange, I'll let you use my ship." And then after you save the lighthouse, he's like, "Never mind, I'm just going to come with you, and you can have my ship."
You go. It's after Mintos. You end up. You run into Boria and Kirill, and you have one of them sick. Kirill is sick.
Yeah, and Boria
and you help
asks
them.
You for help, and you go and you find Elena. She's also trying to get help for Kirill, but she won't join you because she thinks she's already found a hero. And then you find the medicine and you bring it back. Elena's like, "Oh shit, you were the real deal. I'm going to join you instead." And
this is around the time that Balzac is still alive. You start hearing about the secret of evolution.
Yes.
This is the magical power that the enemies have unlocked. The secret of evolution.
That was what Sorrow was after the whole time, because that was what Mina and Maya's father was working on. And,
right. In when we say evolution, we mean like Pokemon style or like Digimon style evolution, where you turn into a big giant monster mutant version of yourself covered in guns and swords and stuff.
That, yeah.
Evolution was a weird name for it. It's very kind of strange.
Yeah. Maybe they could have called it metamorphosis or something.
I don't know. You do have to go fight Balzac again.
Yep.
But he's evolved Balzac, and he has a better name that's even dumber, and I don't remember what it was.
I didn't know he got it. I forgot he got a different name on DS.
He gets a second, and his name goes from Balzac to like I don't remember.
Yeah, in the original, he was just Balzac both times.
No, the second time he's something else. God, what is his fucking name?
It's still Balzac, but with an extra A. So it's Balzac.
Yeah. It's or Balzac. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot that's what it was. So yeah. No, then you're starting to hear about the secret of evolution and Sorrow, and he wants to find the secret of evolution. It's kind of coming together.
Well, you can get Ragnar before you go to Balzac.
Can
You
you
can
really?
sail down to Palais de Leon and get Ragnar.
Yeah, I got Ragnar at the Balzac
Yeah.
fight. Yeah, because I showed up and he was there.
Oh no, Ragnar is at the Palais de Leon fighting the Marquis de Leon.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I'm mixing them up.
He's the lion dude. And then you sail up to Elena's hometown, and Balzac is hanging out in Elena's hometown.
The fight where Ragnar is holding out those dudes,
Yeah.
you have to fight the guy in the Palais de Leon. That fight was tough.
Yes, that is a tough one, and the fight against Balzac
Extremely tough
again
fight.
is a tough fight. Those are
Yep.
both real tough fights. After that, the rest of the game is relatively downhill. There's the fight against Estark, which is also pretty tough.
Mhm. A lot of your quest is for the Zenithian gear.
Yes.
You know how you're not supposed to be hunting for magical MacGuffins in this
So
one.
then you
but
go find
you have
the
to
magical
find
MacGuffins.
the Zenithian sword, armor with a helmet and shield. But they're not magical
Definitely not
MacGuffins.
MacGuffins because they're armor
So
shaped.
each of them is their own obvious quest that you have to go figure out.
And then you
There's also
get to
you spend a
Rosehill.
lot of I spend a lot of time in and around Themyscira, which is the all woman town,
'cause
and men aren't allowed
because you're immediately
after dark.
accused of theft when you walk in, and
Yes.
you're jailed. But for some reason, to prove your innocence, they're like, "All right, we'll let 7 of you go, but we have to hold 1 of you, and the rest of you can prove your innocence. You're definitely not going to just leave your friend here to rot."
This was when I started farming liquid metal slimes outside of Themyscira, so I spent a lot of time here. I did think it was weird, like, at night you're not allowed in the castle because you're a man, but if you can go stay in the tavern, which is run by a man, and sleep inside all you want, as long as you get there before nightfall.
If you're I think if you play as a woman hero, you can go in.
Oh, I just always cast Borea's
that'll
TikTok
also
spell and just made it.
You can also
Daytime.
use the mod rod to become women and go in.
Oh yeah, you can. Cause so the mod rod was a very fun thing. There are some like stealth sections in this game. A few of them. There's one where you have to go through a prison to talk to a guy, and there's guards you have to avoid. And then there's also the section where you go through the demonic hall or
The
whatever,
diabolic hall.
and you have to use the mod rod to turn into monsters. But the mod rod changes you into random
Yes,
characters.
You just have to keep using
So
it so you get a good one.
So sometimes you turn into an old lady or a priest, but if you turn into a monster and you can kind of skulk around this place. And I think this is the first time you really sort of come face to face with Sorrow. And it's right they've just like
you've heard about him before this because you stopped in Rose Hill, and the
Yes.
slime there told you about Sorrow and how he is Rose's savior, which seems strange to you since you've only heard about him as a villain.
I don't really. I never understood, and I haven't played the post game chapter, so maybe they explain it there. But I've never understood Sorrow's motivation.
So you kind of have to hunt for it in the main game. But basically, what it was Sorrow found Rose, and Rose is an elf girl who cries
Yes.
rubies.
Yes.
And so her tears are rubies, but they shatter as soon as they touch anything. So they're not useful rubies. But the townsfolk tormented her to try to make her cry so that they could get her rubies so they could become rich. So it was basically just a bunch of assholes tormenting this poor girl. And Sorrow finds her, learns about how horrible humans are to her, and he decides he hates humans because they are just assholes. And
so he's going to
he wants to
kill all humans.
Yes, to avenge
because
this
they were
girl.
mean to this
Yeah.
girl.
And that's his whole motivation. And basically, he just gets in his head about it and becomes more and more obsessed with this whole idea, and it just balloons. And the newest Dragon Quest Monsters game is all about it.
There is Estark, who you start hearing a lot about, who's the person, the Lord of the Underworld that the Zenithian dragons sealed away or whatever. Around the time of using the mod rod in the Diabolic Hall is where you run into Estark, who's the Lord of the Underworld, aka Satan, I guess.
Yeah, you chase him down. You chase down Sorrow to try to stop him from waking up Estark. And in the process, you end up fighting and defeating Estark. And it's great because you're trying to prevent him from being woken up. So the first half of the battle, he's asleep. So you can get all kinds of hits in. It's great.
And that fight, not as exciting as I thought it'd be. On the DS, though, his sprite, it's not even a sprite, it's a model,
Yeah.
is gigantic.
Oh, yeah.
It spans both
Yep.
screens, which is really cool. Eventually you get a hot air balloon and you have to go up to Yggdrasil.
Right.
And this is where you find the sword. This is where you find Orifella, the
Zenithia,
angel lady that lets you get into Zenithia and shows you how to get there.
That's when you learn that you are half Zenithian.
Yep. You basically, you've got all your Zenithian gear. You've defeated the Lord of the Underworld. You've ascended to Zenithia. And then you have to go down to where Sorrow is, to Naderia. Yeah, which is literally you just jump off a cloud and fall through a hole. And here you go. You're in the underworld, which is literally under the world. It's that easy.
And you're totally fine with that big fall. It doesn't hurt at all.
I do like Naderia. I think it's a cool section. You have to like break these 4 barriers. It's kind of a little boss rush thing. And then Orifella has like a little place where you can save and stuff. And I'd spent a lot of time there grinding and working on the bosses. And I was like, man, this is tough. And then I realized even in Naderia, you can just zoom to whatever fucking town you want and then zoom back to Naderia. I sat there for like an hour and a half and I was like, wait a minute, I can just zoom out of here?
Yeah.
I assumed they would block me.
No, there's that little crypt just south of Endor, and there's a shitload of liquid metal slimes on there. That's where I always go.
Yep. Yeah. I ended up fighting King Metal Slimes. I don't remember where. I don't remember where they are. Oh, you know what? They were to the east of the place where Orifella is in it's like Heaven's Haven or something. The little tiny place in Naderia. Anyway, you eventually go up through Naderia and you fight through a big giant dungeon and you fight Sorrow.
Yeah, and he evolves into on the NES they called his evolved form Necro Sorrow.
Oh,
which I don't think they call him that on the DS. I don't remember if they call his evolved form anything other than
I don't
just
think
Sorrow.
so. It's a tough fight. So he's this weird ghoul monster.
Yeah, he basically transforms into Estark at some point.
Yeah. And as you fight him, his body parts explode off of him. And then eventually he gains new powers and then he like slowly evolves and mutates into this weird green like gremlin looking thing. And then you fight that and it is a very tough, I think it's a 7-stage battle. Yeah. And it is a very, very tough battle. After that, the end credits is kind of what you expect. You go in your hot air balloon that you got earlier in the game. Everyone's kind of dropped off at home. And then the weirdest shit happens. You go back to your hometown and you slough off your like armor or whatever fucking thing you're wearing. And you're in your sad little town. All of a sudden, all the poison and devastation everywhere sprinkles away up into the air.
Turns into flowers.
And Rose shows up and like hugs you. And that's it. And you're like, did they have a relationship?
No.
Like that was never really established. Why is she here?
She's sad
like
because Sorrow's dead.
I guess. I don't know. It was just kind of weird.
So,
there was no real setup for her.
Yeah. So in the post game, which is only
the post game which I haven't played.
this is only on the PS1 and up. So PS1, DS Mobile. You can recruit Sorrow as a playable character.
Mm-hmm.
So this is you go slightly back in time from where the game ends, and you get to stop Sorrow before he uses the Secret of Evolution. You recruit him by reviving Rose. So now Rose is alive. Sorrow has decided that maybe there are some good humans. He's not going to declare war on humanity.
Wait. What do you mean revive Rose?
Because she gets killed at some point in the game, and it is pinned on humans when actually it was some of Sorrow's monsters that had killed her in order to anger him enough to use the Secret of Evolution and become...
I don't remember her dying.
All of this happens in the game. It happens around the time you get the hot air balloon.
I don't know how I don't remember that. I feel like I would remember that.
So
how come every time I play one of these RPGs, there's some major plot point that I'm like, what?
Yeah. So
how did I miss that? I went and saw her. She was in the fucking tower. You go talk to her.
You can talk to her until I think it's when you get to Zenithia the first time is when she gets killed. And if you go back to Rose Hill from that point forward, she's gone and the slime is just mourning. So anyway, you can recruit Sorrow now because he no longer has beef with humans because Rose has been reborn. And you find out that the person who
Well, he had beef with humans before she died.
yeah, but only because they were mean to her. But
This doesn't really make
now
any
that,
sense.
Now that he knows that humans are kind enough to have saved her, he second guesses his hatred of humanity. He thinks maybe there's some humans that are worth saving. And then you learn that it was Sorrow's, one of his lieutenants, Amon, one of the boss rush in Naderia. He was the mastermind of it all. He was the one who killed Rose. He was the one who convinced Sorrow to use the secret of evolution. He was the real bad guy. And now he has become an even greater threat because he has used the secret of evolution and become even more powerful version of the evolved version of Sorrow. So you go into a bonus dungeon, you defeat Amon and all that shit. I don't remember the post game nearly as much as I remember the main game.
Yeah.
But yeah, he becomes an uglier version of the same ugly version of Sorrow.
He was like the priest kind of
Yes.
monster in the of the Four
Right,
Seals. Yeah. Let's talk reception. The game did well.
Yep.
It sold, according to Wikipedia, 1.3 million cartridges and it grossed 14 billion yen.
And that was within an hour?
of its
Yeah.
release. In 92, it had sold 3 million units. Famicom version went on to sell 3.1 million, becoming the fourth best-selling game of the system. Below its predecessor, Dragon Quest III, it sold really, really fucking
What's
well.
funny is
it did good.
in Japan it sold 3.1 million units. In the US it sold 80,000 units.
Yeah, sounds about right. EGM ranked the NES version of the game as 58th on their best console video games of all time in 1997.
It's a weird place at that time.
Famitsu gave the NES version 37 out of 40, PlayStation 32 out of 40, and DS 34 out of 40. Most people seem to prefer the DS version these days. I don't see the NES version talked about very much. DS version has an 80 out of 100 on Metacritic. It was a well-received game, especially in Japan. I think it was well-received here for what it was, but there just was not much of a market for
JRPGs
game
and also NES
at that
games in
time.
general in late 92.
Yeah. Tell us about the legacy. They make more of these, Saturn? Is there Dragon Quest 5?
There was eventually a Dragon Quest 5.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all of them. No. The Mystery Dungeon series basically spun off from this game because the first game in the Mystery Dungeon series was Tornico's Mystery Dungeon, which, as we mentioned earlier, the prototype Taloon's Mystery Dungeon. So that was the first game in the entire Mystery Dungeon series, and it was the first ever spin-off of a Dragon Quest game. And it's fun. It's neat. There were crossover games like Fortune Street and Dragon Quest Heroes where characters from Dragon Quest 4 appear. Usually Elena and her cohorts or Tornico.
Yeah.
Those are the people that show up in other games. It's either Elena or Tornico. Never anyone else usually. Then most recently, Dragon Quest Monsters 3, The Dark Prince, is all about Sorrow's story. It's about him meeting Rose and meeting monsters and befriending monsters. So it is kind of a prequel.
Yeah. As far as final thoughts, I really enjoyed this. I found it to be a treat kind of from end to end. I think the sort of soft restart for each of the early chapters makes the episodic nature of Dragon Quest much more reasonable feeling. And I don't know why it made that more palatable to me than it otherwise would have been. Obviously I missed some story beats. But I liked the story. I was invested.
Healy as a returning character, which is sad.
I missed the return of Healy. Yeah. We didn't even talk about the dragon you get. What's his name? Sparky? Something like that? Yeah, Sparky was fun. I used him.
On NES, his name was Doran, which was very sad. It just feels like a nerd name. I don't know why.
Yeah, you can take the nerdy dragon. Yeah. It's not the most thrilling story in the world, but I think there's enough character depth. I actually, getting to spend time with each character and see them at home and what they're dealing with gave the rest of the story more weight. I think there are definitely, a little bit of plot holes here and there. Elena didn't really get a happy ending. No.
Maya and Mina didn't get a happy ending either.
True. They also didn't.
Tornico did. He gets to go do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, Tornico's doing great. Really, you the hero didn't either. You go home and all, you're like whenever there's that moment where like all of the poison goes away in your hometown, I'm like, oh, the Zenithian dragon's gonna bring all his family back to life, and they're like, nah, they're still dead. You live here alone.
Pretty much only
now.
Tornico gets a happy ending. I guess Ragnar kind of does.
Ragnar kind of,
but
yeah.
really he just gets to continue soldiering.
Yeah. So it's I like it. I think it's real good. I feel very much the same way about this as I do Final Fantasy IV. If you're like, hey, I want to play a Dragon Quest game, but I just want something that's got enough meat on its bones, more than Dragon Quest 1 or 2. But I'm not ready for like a Dragon Quest 7 type of affair. This is, the game's like 20 to 30 hours if you really are taking your time and doing everything. It's not super long. It's pretty in depth. I like all the characters. All the different vignettes are pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time with this. It is an upper echelon Dragon Quest for me, for sure. And not just because it's something you can do in less than 30 hours.
It is
because it's just real good.
It's always been one of my favorites since the NES. When I first played it, I was hesitant. I was resistant to it just because it didn't have Erdrick and all the symbols and everything from the original games. But once I got past that, I really got hooked on it, and it's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. I know the Android port is pretty good. The Android iOS port, if you just want to play it on mobile, make it nice and easy for you. And I think they've got the party chat added back in, which we talked about before. The DS version is very expensive.
Yes, so emulate it or play it on flash card.
Yeah, buy an R4 cart. They're on Amazon. They're like $27. Just
if it makes you feel guilty, buy the mobile version just so you can say you gave Square Enix money.
Yeah, there you go. Mobile version is $17, I think.
Right,
$17.99. So I greatly enjoyed this. I was trying to decide if I liked it more or less than Dragon Quest 3, and I think I just like it differently than Dragon Quest 3.
That's been a conversation I've had in my mind for decades now as far as which one I prefer, but I just like them both in their own way.
I think they're just real different games, you know.
Definitely.
But very enjoyable. Highly recommend Dragon Quest 4 if you want something that's just kind of straightforward and just fun. And still, I think here's what it is. I think that it's still a very straightforward game. It's relatively linear. You're not having to do a lot of sussing out of like skill trees or any weird stuff or builds or having to worry about doing things badly. But also it is very much at a lot of turns a deconstruction of the traditional JRPG.
And it also adds a lot of things to the table that weren't there before.
Yeah. So it's I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it almost as much as I recommend our Patreon. At patreon.com/retrowarriors, where you can listen to us be really old on the pre-show and talk about coins and prostate checks. Is that this episode? It's very late at night. I don't know what.
I think it was this episode.
I don't know which one it was. That's how old
the
I am.
last one was all about fitness, which is also old people talk.
Yes, also old people talk. Those fit old people. You know what they're like.
Old people always worrying about their macros.
Yeah. We want to thank the following patrons, starting with Jammo.
Oh no, this is
this one got mangled by the parser.
Kai of Lingver,
Keith Seaman,
King Vidiot,
James Marks,
Robert Carrier,
Rainbow Relic 220,
Petros,
Simon Sevchek,
and Marcus
are all the patrons whose names we pronounced correctly.
Totally correctly the first time.
We did it. We did it, Sarah. We did Dragon Quest 4. It's done. How many more Dragon Quests we got to do? Let's see. We did 3. We did 4.
We did 1.
We did 1.
We did
How many
7,
are there?
I think.
Did we do 7? I think we
sure
did
we
a
did.
first impressions on 7 because I was like, I had only played like 700 or 800 hours of it, and I think it's like a 4,000 hour game.
You're in the first third of the game.
Yeah, so I feel like I'd put like 50 hours in, and I was talking to you, and you're like, yeah, you're coming up on halfway. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, that's a long one.
And you're like, no, that's basically it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one I'll export the save onto my phone and play some more on my phone.
There you go.
Do that. Anyway, it is 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's true.
So I'm going to go to bed. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us play quicker.